PYE, for the tapestry. So the ideas that covered the Mishkan was dyed different colors. The ideas had different strands in it, different color strands that would be dyed different colors. And the dye came from an herb that would grow. And we discussed there was a planting, and there was a plowing, and there was a threshing, etc. And then they would take that herb and they would actually they would grind it, and they would make a paste out of it, and then they would boil it, and the boiling would create a dye. That's why we can't do cooking on Shabbos. Now, as we discussed, there is the Av Malacha, which was done in the Mishkan, and then there is the Tulda. Every Malacha that was done in the Mishkan is called the Av Malacha, the father of the Malacha. Then there's the Tulda, like the children, the offsprings, meaning whatever is similar to what was done in the Mishkan is equally prohibited. So, in the Mishkan, I think we did this already. I've told you know this already, right? Mm-hmm. So, in the Mishkan, there was the boiling of the dyes. So anything similar to that is also prohibited. So that's why you can't do baking, you can't do frying, you can't do roasting. It's similar to boiling. But it's not only when it comes to food. The Malacha Bishul is also when it comes to, let's say, if you take a piece of wax and you put it over the fire and the fire melts the wax. Or if you take a piece of, take an iron and you put it over the fire, you're able to bend the iron by putting the iron into the fire, using fire to change the texture. That's also included in the Malacha Bishul, because the definition of Bishul is anytime you're using fire to change the texture. That's the definition of Bishul, because what is Bishul? What do they do in the Mishkan? They would boil the dyes. Through the heat of the fire, they were able to change the texture. They were able to boil the dyes. Anytime you're using fire to change the texture, that's the Malacha of Bishul. And as we all know, you also can't put anything into let's say, a hot pot of soup, even though there's no fire anymore. Let's say you take the hot pot of soup off the fire. Now you're not using fire anymore, right? Let's say you want to put raw carrots into the pot of soup, the hot pot of soup, which is a clay rishon, the pot of soup. You're also not allowed because you're going to be cooking the carrots. There's no fire, but it's anytime you're using the heat that came from fire, that is prohibited. So so now there's other situations of cooking, and that is, even if you're not actually doing the cooking, but you're helping the cooking, you're making the cooking go faster, that's also cooking, that's also prohibited. So let's say you have a pot of food on the fire that's not completely cooked, and it's cooking on the fire. And now, are you allowed to keep food on the fire before Shabbos if it's not cooked? There's halachos about it. But there is one situation that you're allowed to keep food on the fire before Shabbos, and that is if it's meat or chicken and it's completely raw, and you're putting it on right before Shabbos. Let's talk about a crock pot. Because a crock pot is according to all opinions. So I'm allowed to put up a crock pot before Shabbos. If there's meat or chicken that's completely raw, I'm allowed to put it up before Shabbos. And it's not, there's no prohibition. You're allowed to do that. So now, what if the cover is off the pot? It comes Friday night, and it's already Shabbos, and you realize that the cover is not on the pot. So you're not allowed to take the cover and cover the pot, because the cover is going to make it cook. Actually, it's not just going to help it cook. It's going to, without the cover, it can't cook at all. So you can't do that. But even if, let's say, it's on top of the fire, Because when you put a crock pot on a very low setting, and you want it to cook through Shabbos, if there's no cover, it's not going to cook, it's going to spoil. But let's say you have the pot on a fire on the blech, and the pot is half cooked. That's also allowed. You're allowed to do that before Shabbos. If it's half cooked, you're allowed to leave it on the fire before Shabbos. So let's say it comes Shabbos, the cover is off, and the food is cooking. The food is going to cook anyways. I'm going to cover the pot, but whether you cover it or not, it's going to cook anyways. But when you cover the pot, you're making the cooking go faster. That's prohibited because you're making the cooking go faster.
So that's okay?
They're saying it's prohibited because anything that you're doing to make the cooking faster, even though it's going to cook anyways on its own, but you're causing that the process of cooking should go faster, that is prohibited. Or even taking the pot and moving it closer to the fire to cook faster. You're not allowed. And the same is also, there's something called hagosa. There's something called stirring. So hagosa.
So how we make tulen? Because tulen was like you put the food before and
Right, so it's really a topic for itself. I'm just mentioning one point. I'm going to elaborate much more later, but I'm giving one situation where you're actually allowed to put up a chalk before Shabbos if it's not cooked, but it actually has to be completely raw. In other words, it has to be completely raw. Usually food has to be cooked before Shabbos to put on the fire. Here we're saying if there's meat or chicken, you're actually allowed to put it up in the fire right before Shabbos, but it has to be completely raw. If it's partially cooked, it becomes an issue. If it's completely raw, you're allowed to put up on a crock pot. On a pot, in a fire is a little more, it's a machlokes, but if you put it on a crock pot, that's totally allowed. Okay, so anything that you're making the cooking go faster is not allowed. Now we're going to come to another example, which is called hagosa. See the word hagosa on the board? Hagosa means stirring. So let's say you have a pot of food on the fire that's not completely cooked. You left it on the fire before Shabbos in a way that it's allowed. Again, it's really a topic for itself. We're going to learn later what situation you can leave food on the fire before Shabbos. Let's say it was allowed. The food is not completely cooked. Now you want to stir the food on the fire. You want to stir it. Stirring makes it go faster. You can't stir. It's going to cook anyways, but you're not allowed because you're making it cook faster. Now, let's say you want to take out some food. It's not totally cooked, but you're okay with it. I want to take out some food from the pot. I want to eat some. The potatoes are not really, it's okay. I'll just chew on it. It's fine. You don't care, let's say. Are you allowed to take out some food from the fire, from the pot? No, because when you are taking food from the pot, so we said already you can't stir. But when you're taking food out of the pot with a ladle, that's also prohibited because it could lead to stirring. Chacham are concerned if you're allowed to take food from the pot with a ladle, you could come to stir also. Sticking a ladle inside the pot is not too far away from stirring. You take like this and you just keep going like that, you might come to stir. So you can't take food out of a pot if it's not completely cooked. But it goes further than that. Now you have a pot of food that's completely cooked. The chalk is on the fire. It's cooked. It's cooked before Shabbos, no problem. Now I want to take the chalk out of the pot. You might know this halacha. No, you can't take it. Can't take out food. You have to take it off the fire. Why? It's already cooked. Because there's a concern that it might not be completely cooked. Now, what does that mean? It is cooked. Chacham are concerned that if you're going to be allowed to stir food, okay, there's two things over here. There's stirring and there's taking with a ladle. Chacham don't allow you to stir a pot of food on the fire, even though it's completely cooked, because we're concerned that you might do it also when it's not cooked. Now, what does that mean? It's really cooked. But generally, when there's a pot on the fire, usually it's not cooked, because when it's cooked, you take it off. So it's very common with a pot on the fire that it's not completely cooked. So therefore, they said if it's on the fire, being on the fire, generally, pot is on the fire, it's still cooking. So we don't want you to stir the pot on the fire because you might come to stir it even when it's not completely cooked. And just like you can't stir the pot, we also don't allow you to take out with a ladle too. The same reason, because it goes together. If you take with a ladle, that can lead to stir. So therefore, you cannot stir a pot on the fire, even if it's completely cooked, and you even cannot take out with a ladle while it's on the fire, because that's sort of already included in stirring, because in other words, it's one step away from stirring. Taking out with a ladle is a step away from stirring, and you might end up stirring the pot. So you can't stir the pot while it's on the fire, even though it's completely cooked. And you also cannot take with a ladle. Now, once the pot is off the fire, now you're allowed to stir, but there is a stringency that Alter Rebbe brings not to stir, even if it's off the fire. And even if it's completely cooked, even if it's off the fire, there's a stringency still not to stir. So the Alter Rebbe says we are strict when it comes to not stirring, but in terms of taking with a ladle is no problem, and you could take out with a ladle once it's off the fire. Is clear so far? Now we come to the next step. So the next step is, so we said, a kli rishon, you have a pot of hot soup. You have a pot of hot soup that's on the fire. So now we're talking about a kli rishon. A kli rishon. Kli rishon. The pot of hot soup is called a kli rishon. It has the ability to cook. Now, too, when does it have the ability to cook? As long as it's yatsi ledis, the pot of hot soup has the ability to cook. Yatsi means the hand, yatsi ledis, the hand recoils. It's so hot that you pull your hand out, right? I stick my finger. This is yatsi ledis. If you want, you can take a cup of water, you'll test it yourself. But if it's hot enough that you can't keep your finger inside, like right now, I'm sticking my finger inside. I took this water 15 minutes ago, and I'm not comfortable leaving my finger inside, so my hand recoils. So it's yatziledis. It's not very, very hot. Can't burn yourself. It's not extremely hot, but as long as it's yatziledis and it's a kli rishon, it's the pot itself that you cook inside that has the ability to cook, and you can't put anything inside. Nothing raw, no salt, no pepper. You can't put anything inside.
So in kli shlishi we can do it?
We're going one keli at a time. This is kli rishon. One thing at a time. Kli shlishi you could, yes.
You could?
You could. Kli shlishi. Now, there is also what's called irei kli rishon. Just like you cannot put stuff in the kli rishon, you also can't pour from the kli rishon. You can't take the pot of hot soup and pour it on something, on sugar, on salt. To pour it directly from a kli rishon is the same issue. Same problem. However, if you are pouring on cold liquid, let's say you are pouring from the hot pot of soup into a bowl, and you don't want the soup should be so hot, now you're going to put some cold water in your bowl, and then take from the hot pot of soup and pour it into your bowl, let's say. So you're pouring hot into cold. This is a machlokes, and we are strict. We don't allow this. However, there can be a situation where you will be allowed, and that is if you are pouring a small amount of hot water, it would be more practical. I mean, you could talk about soup, which is not, we'll talk about both. Let's say you have a bowl of water, right? And you want to pour a little soup into it. Whatever. So you're pouring from the Kli Rishon into the bowl of cold water, pouring from a Kli Rishon into liquid. But there's much more cold water than hot. The cold water is not becoming hot. There's no problem. Okay, let's talk about something practical. You have a cup of cold water. I don't like cold water. I actually don't like cold water. I want it to be room temperature. So I go to the hot water and I'm pouring from a Kli Rishon into cold. I'm pouring from hot into cold. Now, generally, you can't pour from the Kli Rishon into cold, but there's a lot of water in it. I'm pouring a drop of hot water. It's not changing anything, so that's okay. Yeah.
So when you're making coffee on Shabbos and there's like the cup that you will be pouring the hot water into, there's sometimes water left, like a little bit of water. And then so you can.
Right, okay, so I was actually going to get to very good. So you have, I think we're discussing this. So you have a cup, let's say it's empty. You want to get some coffee and you just washed out the cup, so there's some water. That's what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you washed out the cup, so it's wet inside, right? There's some droplets of water. They just washed the cup. You don't think about it. I'm going to get coffee. I'm pouring from a Kli Rishon into my cup, and it's still a little wet. So this is a discussion. It's not practically. We don't do this. Theoretically, there's discussion about it's not really. It could be. It's not really. It's not really cooking. It's not really significant. But the chatchila, we are careful and we should dry the cup. So if you have a cup that's wet, you dry the cup before you pour hot water into it.
Okay.
Now, if it's wet because you used it, and that's why it's wet. Now, what's the that you used it? Use it means use it for hot water. The droplets that are there are leftovers from hot water that was already cooked. So it's a different status. Water that was cooked and became cold is a whole machlokes. They go into it, and generally was strict. We treat it like it was never cooked. But because it's only a few droplets and it was already cooked, there's more room for leniency. So there's a lot of the people who say it's okay. So if you finish drinking your water and there's some droplets left and you want to take more hot water, it's more lenient than a cup they just washed out and some drops and pouring hot water into it. Now, those that might be stricter, there's also and dry it, but you can be lenient. You don't have to worry about it because if the droplets that are left were already cooked, it's okay. Now, again, we're not saying because the water is cooked, there's no bishul. Because it's cooked, combination of the fact that it's just droplets, which is insignificant, the whole explanation, we're not going into it, but one can be lenient and one can pour hot water directly into it. Now we go to Kli Sheni. Kli Sheni is like this. Anyone knows about Kli Sheni? Kli Sheni, there's a general rule about Kli Sheni, and that is that Kli Sheni ain't a vashal. The Kli Sheni does not have the ability to cook. The rule is Kli Sheni ain't a vashal. It doesn't cook. Now, I'm not saying anything practical yet. This is the halacha. This is the concept that it doesn't have the ability to cook. But there's always a catch. It's but the catch is that there are certain foods that do cook in a Kli Sheni, and we're not sure what they are. And then there's another catch. There's two types of Kli Sheni. Now, if someone wants to volunteer and bring a cup of hot water from downstairs. Anybody?
Yeah.
Bring 2 cups if you want. No, take a, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, cup of hot water, yeah. Yeah, hot water for for the purpose of the class, not for myself, for the class, for this. Thank you. Right. Anyone that's a question, you will let one or two lose out from what we're discussing.
Oh, I wanted to ask, so you can't stir food when it's on the fire. Like I'm imagining that you
You
would.
said you can or you
You
can't?
can't.
You can't stir food while
it's
it's on
on the
fire,
fire.
when it's on the fire.
Yes. But what if you have like, and you can't take it when it's on the fire?
Right, because it's one package, because
Right,
if you can't stir, you also can't take, because taking could lead to stirring.
okay, so what if it's like dry or like chicken? Can you take it directly from the
Okay,
fire?
very good. That's a very good question. So actually, there is a discussion. Why can't you take? Because it can lead to stirring, right? So the question is asked, what about you open up the pot of chont? Again, we're talking about completely cooked. And there's a potato sitting on top, and there's not so much liquid, and you take the potato, it's not even the liquid. You can't even get to stir it. It's a machlekes. There are opinions that say no, because you don't allow it, because you might come to stir. And some opinions say that's no problem. You can't come technically in this situation, in this scenario, where it's a solid piece all the way on top, to take that out. You're not coming to stir because you're not even there. You're not on that avenue.
Right.
You're on top. You're not inside the liquid. Thank you. Okay, so there's two temperatures. It's kli sheni yad tziledus, hand recoils. Then it's kli sheni yad nichus. Nichus means burnt. You can burn yourself. We don't mean a 3rd-degree burn necessarily. You can burn yourself. It's hot enough. You can burn yourself. Now, let's see this. This water here, I think, is yad nichus. You want to try it?
Sure. Can we?
No, try it. No, I'm serious. Just be smart about it. Don't leave your finger inside. Could you burn yourself?
Yes.
Yes. So that's yad nichus. It's very hot. You could burn yourself. Right.
I don't have a drink for burning.
Okay, so that's yad nichus. You burn yourself, right? It's very hot. If you wait like 5-10 minutes, maybe it's not.
Yeah, if you even now.
Right. So right now it's yad nichus, right? So, okay. So yad nichus has the ability to cook. So a kli sheni yad nichus, it's pretty much the same like kli nishin yad tziledus. Whenever you can't put anything kli nishin yad tziledus, if it's yad nichus, the Alter Rebbe makes it very clear, if it's yad nichus, then you could burn yourself, then you can't put anything inside, anything that could cook. Again, the exception would be, I don't know if I discussed it, but even a kli nishin yad tziledus, there is a situation where you could put in cold water. I didn't mention it actually. No, I didn't, yeah.
Into the flame?
Yeah. How is it possible that you could put liquid into kli nishin yad tziledus or kli sheni yad nichus? How is it possible? In what way could I put in cold water into a kli nishin yad tziledus?
If it won't change the temperature?
Hmm?
If it won't change the temperature significantly?
Because, well, how would that be? You're putting a
Like-
large amount. Now, putting a large amount and putting it at once, not at once, in one shot. So then the cold water that's coming inside is not changing temperature, but it can't be a little at a time. This is kli nishin yad tziledus. Okay, let's imagine this kli nishin yad tziledus. Yeah. Now I'm putting in some cold water. Allowed, because it's cooking. Putting more and more and more. Eventually, it's not going to be but meanwhile, it is, right? If I go like just like that, I wish I had a sink here to show it makes sense. But I just poured all at once, a lot. Means putting a lot more cold and hot, then the cold is not changing temperature, then that would be okay. So kli shinyat nichris is kli sheni is the same as kli shinyat tziledis. Now, so let's talk about kli sheni tziledis. Kli sheni tziledis meaning if it's not burning, like maybe like after 5-10 minutes, we'll try it soon again. Yeah, with that water, and let's wait another 5 minutes. I think we're starting soon, and then yatziledis. It doesn't have the ability to cook. So I said before, kli sheni here, kli sheni mavashel. That refers to kli sheni yatziledis. It doesn't have the ability to cook. Now, but what does it mean practically? It doesn't mean you're allowed to put things inside. You're still not allowed, because Chacham said there are things that do cook. There are some very sensitive things, delicate things that do cook, and we don't know what they are. So therefore, they said you have to be careful. Even when it's yatziledis, you can't put anything inside because we don't know what they are. There's some things they do know, and that they made clear. They said if you're putting in liquid is okay. Again, what are we discussing? A kli sheni yatziledis, not yad nichris. You could put liquid inside, and also spices. Spices could also be put inside. Onions. Okay, that's a practical, but who's putting onions inside? But those are the things that you're allowed to put inside. Therefore, practically, when it comes to making coffee, even if it's yad tziledis, usually it's yad nichris. We make coffee, yeah. Usually the hot water has yad nichris. That's why we pour it to kli shlishi. But even if it's yad tziledis, still, what are you going to put inside? If it's yad tziledis, you could put milk inside, actually. But the coffee is machlegas. You could put coffee inside of the exact in that category. Some say you could. So therefore, is the kli sheni part of kli shlishi. Once it's in a kli shlishi, then you're allowed to do whatever you want. However, there is a catch. There is an opinion. My father holds that a kli shlishi. Most opinions don't hold like that. But according to my father, kli shlishi, yad nichris, is the same issue. Many opinions, if not most opinions, say that once it's a kli shlishi, even though it's yad nichris, no problem. It's a kli shlishi, don't have to worry about it. Father holds that if it's still yad nichris, it's the same thing. Yeah, if you're going to ask, so what's the logic? What's the logic why kli shlishi, if it's yad nichris, is not an issue? There's an explanation because basically there is something about the water that when you transfer water to another keli, it weakens the power of the water. So, take for example, kli rishon yad tziledis is a problem. You can't put anything inside. Kli sheni yad tziledis, different. What changed? If you pour from a kli rishon to kli sheni, take a thermometer and check when it's a kli rishon, then go to kli sheni. It goes down a couple of degrees. That's it. It's still very hot. So what changed over here? One explanation is because the walls of the kli sheni is not hot. The other explanation, and another explanation is, in addition, because the water gets weakened. The fact that the water was transferred to another keli, it weakens the power. The water does not have the same. It was like it's like someone gave you a zetz. You're knocked out. The water sort of gets knocked out. It doesn't have the same strength, even though the temperature's a couple of degrees. That's the logic. So therefore, when it comes to kli shlishi, we say it doesn't have the same power, and therefore you could put things inside. But there are things that they say that we know are delicate. For example, eggs. Eggs example that's given, that eggs you cannot put even a kli shlishi, even kli revi, because eggs cook very quickly, and therefore, being that it's a delicate food and it cooks quickly, you cannot put it even in a kli shlishi. That means even if it's not yad nichris, even if kli shlishi is yad tziledis, you still won't be allowed to put the eggs because it is a delicate food. Is there any questions? Okay, so we mentioned before regarding liquid. Liquid, I have a couple. Oh, let's try the water now. How's it now? You're not going to burn yourself, right? It's hot, but you're not going to burn yourself. So now see how it's like this. Okay. Now, let's say you wait until,
Sorry, is there a specific temperature for Yatzelatis, or is it just like?
Okay, good. Very good. Yes. Yeah. It is, it's anywhere from 108 and up. So we don't know exactly what the temperature is. It's anywhere from 108 to 160. Igor Smesha brings from 108 to 160, even though not sure why his doubt goes all the way to 160, because I think when it's 130, 140, it's pretty hot.
So
What I understand.
like above that.
Yeah, Jan Nichvis is I'll try to look into the exact temperature. Jan Nichvis even before 160 should be Jan Nichvis. Anyway, from 108 and up can be Yatzilat, meaning we don't know for sure. So from 108 we have to be strict. The Jan Nichvis, I think, could be 125, 130. I have to look exactly. We'll go into more details about Jan Nichvis. So, talking about the water now. So, let's say I wait, and in the class, this water is ready room temperature, right? Once water is room temperature, liquid is room temperature, in the language of Allah, it's considered cold. So we're going to discuss now, if I have water that was cooked and then became cold, am I allowed to recook it? In other words, generally, the rule is, ein bishul, could we erase this?
Yeah.
Generally, the halacha is ein bishul acha bishul. There's no cooking after cooking. Ein bishul acha bishul. No cooking after cooking. Now, for the mothers, what it means is that cooking, there's no cooking, you finish cooking, no one comes to the kitchen now to make a mess, no cooking anymore. But halacha, what it means is that there's no cooking after cooking, meaning that once something is cooked, you can't cook it again. It's already cooked. I'm going to take a potato, a dry potato that's completely cooked, and throwing it in boiling water. Now I'm cooking it again because it's cold. It's not called cooking, it's already cooked. But when it comes to liquid, that's different, because obviously the purpose of when you're cooking hot water, because you want hot water, when it comes room temperature, it's not hot anymore. So in our language, the way we perceive cooking, we look at it like you're cooking the water again, even though it was cooked already, but it's cold now. I want to drink hot water. So to us, that would be considered cooking. In our mind, in halacha, it's a machloikis. There's two opinions. One says it's not cooking; it's already cooked. Even though it's liquid, but it's not called recooking. Other opinion says it is called recooking, like we just explained, because the effect is gone. You want to have a hot drink and it's cold, so it's called cooking. So there is a machloikis if this is considered cooking or not. What the Alter Rebbe says is as follows. The Alter Rebbe draws a line in the middle, and he says like this: one should be strict and treat it like it wasn't cooked. However, if it's still warm, not room temperature, warmish. Warmish means what people call warm. Now, it's hard to give an exact, warm. Soon the water will become warm. You'll be able to see, and it's warm. Okay, another few minutes. So, happened over it? Why is it falling down? Was holding before.
Yeah.
Okay. No. As long as it's still warm, The Alter Rebbe says we can be lenient. We could treat it like it's still cooked. So if, let's say, this, what I'm drinking now is still warm. It's still warm. It's warm. Now, if I want to add more hot water to it, if this water was never cooked, I wouldn't be allowed. It was completely cooked. But being it was already cooked and it's still warm, the Alter Rebbe says it's okay to quote unquote recook it because we can't be lenient and rely on the opinion that says it's not considered recooking. But the Alter Rebbe only wants to rely on that opinion while it's still warm. So while the water is still warm, being that it was completely cooked, and now it's still warm, the Alter Rebbe says it's okay. You could, so to say, recook it because you're not really recooking it because halachically there's no recooking because it's already cooked. But we're relying on that opinion only in the situation when the water is still warm.
Is that in a specific thing, like food chain or in general?
What do you mean exactly? This is, I'm taking my cup,
Yeah.
and I'm going to hot water, and I'm adding hot water straight from the clean into here.
Right.
And let's say I have to make it more clear, I have a very small amount of water. Because if I'm putting a drop amount, I'm not doing anything anyways. Let's say there's very little water left, and it's still warm, and I'm going to add a lot of hot water. So to say, recooking the water. But halachically, it's okay, because being that the water was already cooked, and it's still warm, so it's okay. Clear? Any questions?
What's the status of like when you're pouring from a cliche?
Oh, good. What about pouring from a cliche? Pouring from a cliche, we can be lenient. Now, if you're pouring, so we are strict with a cliche, as we discussed, not to put anything cliche. But when you're pouring from a cliche, it's a cliche, it's still hot, onto something else, then it's totally fine. But that's if it's Yad Siledis. If it's Yad Nichvis, then there is a machlokes. So there's an argument where you're pouring from a cliche. Yad Nichvis. Yad Nichvis is a temperature that's very, very hot. Cliche, Yad Nichvis. To pour from that onto something is a machlokes. So again, a cliche Yad Siledis, when we said we're strict not to put anything inside. But to pour from that onto something else, there's no issue. We discussed the cliche essentially does not have the ability to cook when it's Yatsi lettuce. It's just that we're strict not to put it, we're supposed to be strict not to put anything inside, besides liquid. But when you're pouring onto something else, you're pouring from the cliche. If it's only Yatsi lettuce, and you're pouring it onto something else, then it's okay. There's no problem. The stringency is only putting it inside. But if the cliche is Yad Nichas, burning hot, and we said you don't put anything inside, then pouring from the cliche onto other things, there are different opinions. Some are lenient, some are strict.
So what's the ideal thing to do for making coffee?
Now, when I'm saying pouring from a cliche Yad Nichas onto something else, which is machlokes, I'm referring primarily to solid things like powder, sugar, coffee. But if it's onto liquid, that's something different. We'll discuss that in the next class.
Okay. So it's better to pour from a cliche into a food and then add the coffee.
Yes. Yeah, that would be better. For sure, pouring to cliche.
Very hot.
Yeah, pouring to cliche would definitely be better. Yes. Yeah.
And stir, right?
Stir what? Stir. Oh, because if you're allowed to put it inside, you could stir it also. The issue of stirring is that there might be particles of food that weren't cooked. I mean, you're stirring, you're cooking. If we're saying I'm allowed to put the coffee inside here, it's not considered cooking, that I could stir also.
Okay.
You get it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a chef. Tomorrow we'll continue with this.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Only for hot thing. Like
Only?
only for hot thing. Because I mean, I wanna do like iced coffee.
You like it?
So
Iced coffee.
I don't need to do like
Water.
English.
Yeah.
Right?
Only for hot, not for
Only
ice.
for hot.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
Back to back.
Oh,
Because I wish-
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a plan from Friday night.
Wow, thank
That's
you.
really
It's
helpful.
great.
Because
Oh,
Friday
thank you.
night,
Everyone has to
the
watch
next
there.
day,
Yes.
I want with chicken,
Yeah.
with shoulders, and I put the sauce of the chicken.
But she really wants.
It's shoulders,
Like, she wants us to stay.
What's chicken?
She tells everybody.
Inside the challenge?
No, I have
Yeah. And
a
it's not kind of
piece of
about it.
chicken,
She had to believe it herself.
On the chicken?
on the chicken.
Like the-
The chicken is dry.
They do?
Yes.
The chicken is dry and cooked. You can put salt on top of it. It's cooked already. You're not doing anything. Okay.
Rabbib Osdoba, if you
Yeah.
can I clarify, so taking solid food directly from the blast, it's going like this, right?
Taking solid food.
Directly from the fire, like a piece of chicken from the fire.
Scooping out.
Yes. Cause we said you can't take food from the fire when it's.
Scooping out. Oh, a solid piece.
Yes.
Oh, with where the solid piece on top of the pot. If it's towards the
Like if
top.
it's a tray of chicken, let's say.
No. A tray. No. If it's just a tray of chicken on the fire and there's no liquid at all, there's no problem taking it off.
Oh, okay.
We're discussing when you have a pot with liquid and solids mixed together. But because there's solid pieces on top, so now it's like in a different category. What you're doing, you're in such a place that you're not going to come to stir because you just take from the top.
Right.
So over here, you have different opinions if it's okay. But when everything is solid, platter of chicken, no
Yeah.
liquid at all, there's no problem taking off a piece of chicken from the fire.
I understand.
Right?
Thank you.